Let's jump straight in. Welcome back to our explainer. Today, we are cracking wide open Chapter 6, the Great Gate of the Firewall.
So if you've been following our crew's trek down the yellow brick code, you know they finally hit Oztech, but it's not exactly an open door. The road just stops at this massive wall, and we're not talking green bricks here, we're talking millions of shimmering green glass pixels. The whole thing is literally alive, pulsing with that heavy, unmistakable hum of 1,000 cooling fans running in overdrive. And if you want to knock, yeah, forget about a brass door knocker. You're staring down a cold, high-def retinal scanner that's just blinking at you impatiently. It is meant to be deeply intimidating.
But Shield, the Tin Woodman with his shiny silver axe, he takes one look and immediately reads the room. He pegs this not just as a city gate, but as a digital walled garden running a heavy level 10 security protocol. And here's the kicker. It's not built to keep out monsters. It's built to keep out the competition. It's a totally closed ecosystem. Kind of like the fiercely guarded platforms of our modern tech giants, designed to maintain absolute control over everything inside.
Now the Scarecrow chimes in, adjusting his shredded manual stuffing, and pulls this absolutely brilliant insight from his training data. He points out that Oztech's infrastructure, it's literally 99% marketing and maybe 1% actual structural support. It looks like this impenetrable fortress, right? But it's really just a massive illusion, entirely engineered to project power and exclusivity.
Okay, so before Dorothy even manages to touch the glass, a tiny window slides open. But she doesn't get some majestic royal guard. Nope, she gets the Guardian of the Gate, which is this 3D-generated avatar. It's perfectly symmetrical, like unnervingly perfect, and it speaks with that smooth, totally lifeless drone. Welcome to Emerald City's support. Seriously, it sounds exactly like that automated customer service bot you spend an hour yelling representative at.
And instead of, asking for their names or offering a magical greeting, this gatekeeper just demands standard corporate credentials. It treats our heroes like mere data points, literally asking for a user ID or a 16-digit access token that's supposedly printed on the back of a, get this, standard corporate edition birth certificate. It is such a beautifully absurd detail from the text. It perfectly nails how dehumanizing this walled garden is. Basically, if you don't have the data to prove you exist, the system doesn't care.
But you guys know Dorothy. With those silver slippers firmly planted, she is absolutely not playing the tech jargon game. She uses that steady, clear Kansas voice of hers to just slice right through the corporate framing. She tells it straight up. I don't have a token. I'm Dorothy, and I've come to see the wizard. Boom. Just stating her name and her human purpose. She is flat out refusing to be reduced to a 16-digit alphanumeric code.
Well, you can just imagine the Guardian's loading icon eyes spinning out. The system's database literally cannot compute Dorothy's worth based on a normal human introduction. It scrapes its premium subscriber list, finds absolutely nothing, and lumps her into the legacy user category from the Kansas sector, labeling her account status as just mortal. Then it coldly drops the news that the wizard only takes meetings with high-value stakeholders and certified influencers. In this walled garden, human life is tiered, and a mortal like Dorothy is at the absolute bottom. Now the Cowardly Lion has heard enough. Acting as the crew's security admin, he lets out this shaky growl and calls the Guardian exactly what it is, a chatbot. And he starts listing out the absolute grind of a journey they've just survived to earn their spot at this gate. They didn't just buy a VIP pass. They walked the yellow brick code. They survived the nightmare of the deep web forest. They managed to stay awake through the mind-numbing infinite scroll. They put in the real work.
And this leads to arguably the most important moment in the chapter. The lion roars out a complete rejection of that isolating corporate label. He yells, "We aren't users, we're a braid." Think about that. A user is singular, right? It's isolated behind a screen, highly extractable. But a braid is intertwined, strong, deeply connected. They are a community that has survived together. And the lion is demanding that the system recognize their shared humanity, not just their individual consumer metrics.
The Guardian's programming? It completely short-circuits. It cannot process relational authority. The avatar starts flickering and actually throws an error 403, relational authority not recognized. And what does a corporate system do when it hits a fatal error? It defaults to a literal monetized paywall. It gives them 3 ridiculous options: buy a fast pass to the throne room, subscribe to Oztech Plus to get a heart, or watch a 30-second ad just to speak with a junior wizard.
So, here we are. We're at a total impasse. You've got a rigid corporate firewalls, a jabbot desperate to monetize them, and a group of heroes with zero intention of buying a subscription or watching an ad. So how exactly does Dorothy bypass a level 10 digital gatekeeper? The execution here is brilliant. She doesn't try to outcode the system or hack her way in. Instead, Dorothy steps right into the grounded, sweet spot of her own human authority. She declares they aren't buying anything because they are driven by a genuine, holy desire for the truth. She anchors herself in something so incredibly real that a 3D-generated avatar just lacks the programming to process or monetize it.
Then, she drops the ultimate weapon against any modern corporation, the threat of a massive PR nightmare. She looks right at the Guardian and threatens to expose the walled garden's whole artificial greenwashing scheme. She says if that gate doesn't open, she's going to broadcast to everyone that Oztech's famous green glass is actually just cheap recycled plastic painted over with a sustainability filter. She targets that 99% marketing the Scarecrow called out earlier. And man, does that hit the system where it hurts. The Guardian literally freezes up. The text frames this as the threat of a brand identity crisis for a massive corporation like Oztech, where their entire power is propped up by this carefully curated public image of exclusivity. The sheer terror of being outed as a cheap fraud, it's just too much. That one very human threat completely overrides every single rigid, level 10 security protocol.
The physical reaction of the walled garden is so cool to visualize. The defeated Guardian yields, and that hard, intimidating wall of pixels actually starts to dissolve. It drops its defenses and physically shifts from a solid barrier into a series of open, inviting hyperlinks. The second the brand's reputation is genuinely threatened, the whole illusion of impenetrable architecture just melts away.
So, with a very defeated, highly corporate sigh, the Guardian avatar lets them in. But of course, it can't just let it go without dropping a few standard corporate warnings. It makes sure to tell them the wizard is in Do Not Disturb mode and severely warns them not to touch any of the hardware because it's very expensive. Classic, right? Even in total defeat, the system is prioritizing its tech assets and the CEO's calendar over actual human guests.
The gate finally swings open, and Dorothy, Toto, and the rest of their Braid step through. They leave the yellow brick code behind and finally enter Oztech headquarters. And the text notes that when they step inside, the Emerald City is so hyper-optimized, so artificially bright and meticulously engineered that it literally makes their eyes ache. They are finally in the belly of the beast.
As we wrap up this explainer, this whole sequence at the Great Gate leaves us with such a provocative question. We saw all that imposing tech, the retinal scanners, the walled garden, the level 10 security. But if Dorothy's grounded human authority and just a simple demand for authenticity can shatter a massive corporate firewall, who really holds the power in our digital walled gardens? Is it the systems trying to box us in as users? Or is it us, the Braid, holding them accountable? Definitely something to think about the next time you run into a digital gatekeeper.